Hi everyone, this is Helloangel.design. Today I'm going to show you how I make this cute dress. I use bias binding to hem the bottom edge. The dress has handkerchief skirt, so this is how it is once you have done making. You can see my yellow bias binding and the fabric has a yellow inside. I can also use red, blue or white, but I decide to use yellow for the bottom edge. And for the center back, it has a button loop at the center back of the dress. This dress is for 3 to 4 years old child. Remember to support us by subscribing, turn on your notification bell button, select all option. If my tutorial is helpful, thumbs up, make a comment down below if you have any question. Remember to watch the video until the end. Everything is step by step and you will enjoy making this dress for your kids or loved ones. And let's get started. Do you take your pattern paper, place a different pattern paper on your pattern paper and trace it out. I have 2 front pattern paper right here. This is my main pattern paper. I trace it out on this one. So what you're going to do once you trace your pattern paper out like this is the front of my pattern paper. For the waistline, I add 1 centimeter, or you can add half an inch. Then you place your ruler at the armhole. You go ahead and connect it down. You just place your ruler like this, you go ahead and connect it down. My pattern paper already includes seam allowance. I'm not going to add any more seam allowance. So this is how I trace out my front pattern paper. The back pattern paper, I also repeat the same process. So you can see that I have 2 back pattern paper. Then you place your main pattern paper, place it on a different paper. You just go ahead and trace it out. So for the waistline, I also repeat the same process. I add 1 centimeter, or you can add half an inch. Place your ruler at the armhole. You go ahead and trace it down. This is my fabric. I'm going to use this fabric to make this dress. It's a lightweight cotton fabric. You can use any fabric of your choice as long as it's a cotton fabric. So what I'm going to do, this is the front of my fabric. I'm going to pin my pattern paper on my fabric. So I will pick the front pattern paper. Make sure that your pattern paper is on fold. When you're also pinning your back pattern paper, you're also going to pin it on fold. Because this dress, we are going to make a button loop at the center back. So go ahead and pin your pattern paper on your fabric. Once you have done that, cut it out, and you also cut out the back pattern paper. And you also go ahead and cut out your lining. If you don't want to add lining on your dress making, you can use bias binding. But for me, I'm going to also cut out my lining, both front and back. The next thing that we have to cut, we are going to cut the skirt. I have 2 fabric right here, 1, 2. I have already cut mine out. I will tell you the measurement of my fabric. So I will put this aside and I will open my fabric. So I will take my measuring tape. This is my measuring tape. Place it at the beginning of the fabric. I'm going to take the width of the fabric. The width of the fabric is 31 inch. If you're using centimeter, measure 97 centimeter. And you place your measuring tape like this. Again, I'm going to take the length of the fabric. The length of the fabric is 33 inch. If you're using centimeter, measure 84 centimeter. So this is how I cut my fabric. Remember to cut 2 pieces of the fabric. I'm folding my fabric into 4. Make sure you fold your fabric properly. So these are the raw edges of my fabric. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are the raw edges, while this side are all folded. This side is also folded. The next thing that you have to do, you take your front pattern paper. For the side seam, you measure inside 1 centimeter. I've already done that. Once you measure inside 1 centimeter, take your marker and your ruler, connect that mark down to the waistline, and you fold the 1 centimeter inside, because this 1 centimeter is seam allowance. We don't need it. For the skirt, there is no seam allowance for the skirt. It's going to be a circle skirt at the waistline. So what you're going to do, once you fold that 1 centimeter inside, this is the fold hem side of my fabric, and this side is also folded, while this side is the raw edges. So what you're going to do, you pick your front pattern paper, the waistline, you just place it a diagonal way like this. You can see how I place mine. You can secure that with a pin, or you can just go ahead and take your marker and trace it out the waistline. I have pinned it on the fabric. This is how it is. What you're going to do, go ahead and trace it out. Once you've done that, go ahead and remove the pins. So this is how it will look. The next thing that you have to do, you're going to take a measurement. From here to here, you place your measuring tape like this. Mine is 4.25 inch. What you're going to do, you just go ahead and measure it all around 4.25 inch, so that you have that curved circle skirt. I have measured it around. The next thing that you have to do, go ahead and connect the mark together like this. Once you connect the mark together, take your scissors and cut it out. Once you have cut it out, this is how it is. The next thing that you have to do, you take the skirt, place it on the second fabric. You just go ahead and trace out the waistline and cut it out. For the bottom edge, you don't need to cut anything out because it's handkerchief skirt. You just leave it the way it is. First thing that you have to do, you open your back fabric. For the center back, we are going to take a measurement. So you place your measuring tape like this. Measure down 7.5 centimeter or 3 inch. So this is where my 7.5 centimeter end, or 3 inch. Once you have done that, I will turn my fabric. I'm going to cut it down to that 7.5 centimeter or 3 inch. I have cut my center back of the fabric. The next thing that you have to do, you take your lining, make sure you also repeat the same process. Cut it down to 7.5 centimeter or 3 inch. Once you have done that, put the both fabric together. Make sure that both front fabric are facing each other. Go ahead and pin the both armhole, neckline, and center back. I have pinned the both armhole, neckline, and center back. The next thing that you have to do, take it to your sewing machine. Stitch around the armhole with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Stitch around the neckline with 1 centimeter seam allowance. When you are going to stitch the center back, remember to place your button loop inside the center back. This is my button loop, so I will place it inside like this, and the raw edges will be facing out. Go ahead and stitch around the center back. Before you place your button loop inside, make sure that you stitch the neckline first, and then place your button loop, and then continue stitching around the center back. Once you have done that, you also take your front top dress that you're making. Put both front fabric together. This is my lining, both front fabric together. Go ahead and pin around the neckline and the armhole. Once you have done that, take it to your sewing machine. Stitch around the armhole and the neckline. Do not stitch the shoulder yet. When you're also stitching the back, do not stitch the shoulder yet. have stitched the both front and back top dress together. This is how it is. The next thing that you have to do, turn your front fabric inside out. Once you have turned your front fabric inside out, the next thing that you have to do, this is my back top. So this is the front fabric. I didn't turn the back inside out. So I will open my front top fabric. I'm going to put the back inside the front. I will take a safety pin, place it at the shoulder. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it inside. You can see that both front fabric are facing each other. Once we stitch the shoulder, the lining will be facing each other. So push it through the shoulder, remove the safety pin, and then fix the shoulder properly. Once you have done that, go ahead and secure the both shoulder together with a pin. I have pinned the both shoulder together. The next thing that you have to do, take it to your sewing machine, go ahead and stitch the both shoulder seam together. Once you have done that, you just go ahead and pull your fabric out. You can see how that is. This is how it will look once you have stitched the shoulder seam of your top dress. The next thing that you have to do, you're going to stitch the side seam together. Go ahead, put the both side seam together like this. Go ahead and stitch it with 1 centimeter seam allowance, depends on the seam allowance that you add on your fabric. Both make fabric together, lining together, and you also repeat the same process on the other side. Put the both sides seam together, stitch it with 1 centimeter seam allowance, or depends on the seam allowance that you add on your fabric. I have stitched the both sides seam together. This is how it is. I take it to my ironing board and I give it a nice press. The next thing that you have to do, you take your skirt. This is my skirt. This is how it looks right now. It has a V at the bottom. So I will just open my skirt. I will open my skirt like this, and I will pick the second pieces, and I'm going to place it a diagonal way. This is how it will look once you have done putting them together. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and stitch the both skirts together. If your waistline is a little bit bigger, all you have to do, you just stitch a gather stitch thread at the waistline. You just pull it a little bit so that it fits the waistline of your top dress. I have put my skirt together, the both fabric together. You can see how that is. And I stitch a gather stitch thread on my skirt. So what you are going to do, you're going to turn your skirt inside out. Once you turn your skirt inside out, you put them together like this. I'm going to take a scissors and snip on the side. And I will also repeat the same process on this other side. Like that. Once you have done that, open your skirt. Then pick your top, put it inside the skirt. So before you put it inside the skirt, you put the both side seam of your top together, both lining and top together. I'm going to stitch them together at the same time. Secure it with a pin like this. And I will do the same thing with the other side. My side seam top, both lining together, and I will pick the side that I already notched, put them together and secure that with a pin. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull my skirt just a little bit to fit the waistline of my top dress. I have pinned my skirt around the waistline of my top dress. The next thing that you have to do, take it to your sewing machine. Go ahead and stitch it with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Depends on the seam allowance that you add on your fabric. Go ahead and stitch it together. Once you have done that, remove the gathered stitch thread. Take it to your overlocker, overlock the raw edges, or use zigzag to overlock the raw edges. I have stitched my skirt on the waistline of my dress. This is how it is. You can see how that is. This is the bottom edge of my dress. The next thing that you have to do, take your dress to your sewing machine, fold inside 1 centimeter, fold it again 1 centimeter, and top stitch it all around. But the way I am going to hem my dress, I will just turn the dress like this. I will pick my bias binding. I've already cut my bias binding. The width of my bias binding is 1.25 inch. If you're using centimeter, you can measure 3 centimeter. So I will place my bias binding at the back of the fabric like this. I will go ahead and top stitch, fold it inside, then fold it again and top stitch. So my bias binding will be showing at the front of my dress. So this is how I'm going to hem my dress all around. If you can do that, just go ahead and fold inside 1 centimeter, fold it again 1 centimeter, and top stitch. Once you have done that, your dress is finally ready. All you have to do next, stitch your button at the center back, and you have a beautiful handkerchief dress. So go ahead and stitch that together. This is the final look of my dress. It's beautiful, step-by-step tutorial, and this is how I hem my bottom edge handkerchief skirt. You can see how that is. Yellow bias binding because my fabric has a yellow, has a white, has a blue. So I can even use red, but I prefer to use yellow to bind the bottom edge. This is how it is, and I've also stitched my button at the center back of the dress. Thank you all so much for watching our video, and have a wonderful day. Bye.